To be able to maintain the integrity and the availability of data, some of the following controls might be used. One is to enforce definition standards. You know, I kind of talked about that before, right? If I have the definitions, I've got the metadata, or if it's a definition of what's in the column, those types of things. Enforce those standards. Constantly do data backup, test the recoveries, make sure they work. You might consider access controls to be able to reach those data objects. Kind of talked about that as well, that internally in some database management systems, they have little controls called views and stored procedures that do stuff and can help control the access to the data. Assignment of privileged use, right? We don't give everybody full administrative access. We should also be able to deal with concurrent access problems. I said as an example, data locks. So here's the thing. Let's say I'm updating an employee in my database, and I'm putting them in a new shift, or I'm giving them a new supervisor or new people they supervise. Meanwhile, this other person is connecting and wanting to change their address information because they just recently moved. If we both have the same record open, whose changes are going to win? In that situation, whoever hit enter and saved last would win that battle. So somebody's update wouldn't be there. To deal with those types of concurrent access problems, databases say that once a record's open to be edited or changed, it's locked. The next person can read it, but they can't make changes. So that would be an example of how to deal with those concurrent access problems. The other one is, of course, is if I'm making a query and I say, show me all the customers in California, and another user connects and says, show me all the customers in Massachusetts. Well, right, we don't want the results of those two separate queries to get all mixed together. So they have ways of separating those queries, the isolation of each of those processes. We also want to ensure accuracy, completeness, and consistency of the data elements and their relationships. I had that discussion about referential integrity, about how you cannot delete those primary key foreign keys without causing big problems. We also have database checkpoints. A database checkpoint is a way of basically maintaining the actual what's in the hard drive, and methods of monitoring the database performance. Something else we look at in our systems is tape and disk management. Now, we know that there's a lot of automated tape management systems, we call them TMS, or disk management systems, DMS, and they have forms of specialized system software that can track and list tapes or disks and resources that are needed for data center processing. Another issue that we looked at were the utility programs. Now, the utility program is software that we can use to perform maintenance, to run automatic routines, or routines that need to be repeated frequently. Now, the utility programs are kind of categorized by their use, and the 5 functionalities they have are utilities to maybe help understand the application systems, maybe through flowcharts, profile analyzers, execution paths, other types of analyzers. You might have one that can assess or test the data quality. You may have some that are testing programs' ability to function correctly and maintain integrity. You might have some that we use to help us in faster program development, like the integrated development environments. They could also be there to help the operational efficiency, such as making better use of the CPU or memory utilization, like virtual memory does in Windows. We also have to be aware of the software licensing issues. Now, whether connectivity to the software is being done locally, meaning I'm using the computer that the software is installed on, or remotely, I'm connected to a computer that's running software. There are software copyright laws that have to be followed to be able to protect against the possibility of a company violating a licensing rule. Now, I can tell you a story about that. It's something that occurred right around 1999-2000 to a governmental agency on the West Coast. I like to be vague so I don't get anybody in trouble. And I was talking to this person who is now the director of the information services for this agency, and they had just started this job, and they were telling me how they got the job. I mean, why the vacancy was open. Their predecessor had basically bought Microsoft Office and installed it on all these machines, but didn't have the licenses for it. And somebody turned them in, and so the solution was that they went out, I think, to eBay. I think eBay was there at the time. They went online, and they bought up all of these DVDs of Microsoft Office, so that when the auditors came in to see if they were doing anything wrong, the director could say, here, look, see all these DVDs, each one, because each one was a licensed copy, right? And it vouched. And so this is money out of their pocket. Well, they found out that they were all cloned DVDs, just bought more pirated software to present why they're not pirating. Apparently, that was considered a career-ending move. And so, this guy came in. And I was told that the potential for licensing fines was huge. But because, they took care of it, apparently, it was a lot less than it could have been. So, you need to make sure in your audits that there are tools in place to prevent or detect software licensing violations. As such, as an auditor, you should review the document policies and procedures and the preventive controls that are in place to guard against unauthorized use of copying of software. You need to make sure you can copy or obtain copies of all the software contracts to know what the license agreements are. Review the list of all standard, used, and licensed applications and system software. And then review what software is currently installed on all the user machines. Now, I know you're probably thinking, ouch, I don't have that kind of time. All right, so if it's a large organization, odds are they may have a tool called let's say it's a Microsoft. I'm assuming it, because most of the networks are. They have a tool called the System Center Configuration Manager, which can connect to every machine and do a hardware-software inventory for you, even a utilization report. So that information isn't that hard to get a hold of. It's not like you have to go turn them all on and hope that you can figure out what's installed. Now there are some other things you can do to prevent software license violations, like centralizing the control and automated distribution installation of software. Hey, Configuration Manager can do that too. It can push software out, take it away when you need to. You can do that with group policies. And there are many other solutions besides Microsoft ones. I'm just hitting you with the ones off the top of my head. You could instead make everything a dumb terminal that connects to a secured LAN. What does that mean? That means you have a terminal with no hard drive, so you can't download the software, you can't take it, steal it, use it to go somewhere else. And you're connecting it to a network that we hope is already outfitted with all the proper licenses. You have metering software, as I've talked about with Configuration Manager, that's monitoring what's being used, and do regular scans of the PCs. Another alternative, but it might be a little more pricey than you want, is to acquire what's called a site license agreement from the vendor. Generally, a site license is an agreed-upon price, a yearly renewable price, but it says for this price, everybody that works at your company can use the software. Another thing we see is what's called digital rights management, another protection. And because of the growth of software piracy from peer-to-peer networks or BitTorrent types of networks, we found that there's a lot of innovative ways to make it nearly impossible for people to pirate software because they found so many ways to do it. And so that's what digital rights management does. It refers to a method of access control techniques to protect copyrighted holders and to impose limitations on the use of digital content. I know I battled some of these very files just last week. Files used in training, I have legitimate rights to use them, but they're so locked down that I can only open it up on one computer. So if I have to go somewhere else, I have to go and beg for a new license to unlock it on the new one, and the old license is void. I needed to print a couple of sheets here and there. Not the whole thing, but just a couple of pages. By the 4th page request, and I mean, this is like the 10th page I printed, it just suddenly said, you're not permitted to print anymore. You've printed your maximum copy. And so that's what we can do with some of this type of technology.